always try to run away. Waiting I go do to make you stay for days. Is this love enough? Yeah, you know I got this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Jabari Vog Media's Unsavory Politik. I am your host, and I'm here again with my co-host, Alex Flores. And we have a special guest returning to the show, and for the first time on Roku TV with us as well too, Rebekah Jones, who is a data scientist, and also activist. She does a lot,
and a whistleblower. You kind of went out there for a second.
And we had a whole episode about people. Please understand that Florida administration is crazy. There's some people.
I wouldn't even call it that. I'd call it a regime. Why give it the legitimacy of an administration, right? Out of the three of us, I'm the one that still resides here. But I'd like to present Rebekah once again because I'm a supporter, admirer of hers, and been following her. I got convinced to start a TikTok, and she's been doing great videos on there too. That's a great way to go viral. I don't really post politics on TikTok, but I follow some people, including her, on there. Mm-hmm. But on this particular topic, right? Alligator Alcatraz, and it has other nicknames as well. It's personal to me, being the son of an immigrant, a Latino, and you had people prominent in the alt-right that are Trump supporters, like Laura Loomer, who said the other day, we need to feed 65 billion to these alligators. That's the total population of Latinos in the United States. So literally calling for genocide. And you have people like Rebekah standing up, and, some might, say, oh, white savior or whatever, but she's nothing like that. She's not coming in from the bourgeois. She's coming as a working class person showing solidarity. And so I thought it'd be great to share our views on the show in this particular shameful part of our history. Not only shameful when it comes to U.S. foreign policy and the genocide in Gaza, but shameful among our own people here in Florida with the formation of this despicable concentration camp. So welcome to the show, Rebekah.
It's nice to be back.
Yeah, we have a good amount to talk about, especially I wanted to ask, do you want to show the video first?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's get that out the way. That'll give some context.
Okay.
No video of you speaking, Rebekah, because you're going to put your own voice here. But we had a couple of videos that we prepared about the topic that we'd like to show our viewers.
Yeah.
Alligators sporting ice hats and a man assumed to be Donald Trump standing behind them. Alligator Alcatraz, make America safe again. Deep in the swamplands of Florida, far from civilization, is a virtually abandoned 39-square-mile airfield. It's surrounded by deadly wetlands and predators of the marshy Everglades, pythons, swarms of mosquitoes, and hundreds of alligators that roam the area. This is now the site of a new migrant detention center dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. According to Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, the facility will have the capacity to accommodate about 3,000 detainees when it's fully operational. The first group of migrant detainees arrived on Wednesday. The facility did not exist even last week. It was hastily constructed in a matter of days. Florida's Attorney General James Uthmeier says the facility will mostly consist of tents and trailers. No brick and mortar construction required, which seems not great for Florida's stifling summer heat and humidity and a hurricane season that's predicted to be worse than past years. The roughly 11,000-foot airstrip, which has been used mainly for training purposes, is going to serve as Florida's private airstrip to fly detainees into the facility and ship them out on deportation flights. As Uthmeier proudly puts it, it's a one-stop shop to carry out Donald Trump's mass deportation agenda. As for security, according to the Associated Press, the facility will be equipped with more than 200 security cameras, more than 28,000 feet of barbed wire, and 400 security personnel. But President Donald Trump, Governor DeSantis, and other proponents of Alligator Alcatraz are counting on the isolation of the area and its natural habitat to further boost security, which is where the alligator cops come in.
We have a lot of bodyguards and a lot of cops that are in the form of alligators. You don't have to pay them so much. but I wouldn't want to run through the Everglades for long.
It might be as good as the real Alcatraz site. You know, it could be. Well, that's a spooky one too, isn't it? Huh? That's a tough site.
With the alligator Alcatraz, is the idea that it's some illegal immigrant that they just get eaten by an alligator or a snake or something?
I guess that's the concept. This is not a nice business. I guess that's the concept. If you know, the snakes are fast, but alligators are, but we're going to teach them how to run away from an alligator, okay? If they escape prison, how to run away. Don't run in a straight line. Run like this. And you know what? Your chances go up about 1%.
The President of the United States delighting in the prospect of immigrants being eaten by alligators. A sick and twisted fantasy come to life. In a tweet, Benny Johnson, a MAGA YouTuber.
Yeah, I had about just enough of that, right? I want to hear what Trump has to say. Just give people an idea. Like we had a couple.
Detainees said that he had not been able to take a bath in 4 days, that there was no reliable food and water, and the one time that he was fed since his detainment, the food had maggots in it. A second detainee mentioned that there was no medical or mental health care, and that they kept the lights on 24/7 to prevent people from sleeping, which is actually a form of psychological warfare used in wartime conflicts. The third detainee from Colombia said that his Bible was taken from him, with officers saying, quote, "You have no right to religion here," which is interesting considering I thought that this was a Christian movement. This also violates the Constitution they claim they care about so much. It violates the 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, and 14th Amendment, which guarantees due process to every single person who has their feet on American soil, not just citizens. And none of these people have been given due process. They haven't been convicted of a crime. They haven't even, many of them have not been able to see legal representation. All of this is happening while immigration czar Tom Homan is saying, we should stop calling ICE officers Nazis. Okay, motherfuckers, when you take your masks off and you have actual credentials and you have warrants, I'll consider not calling you Nazis. When you're not body snatching people off the street because they're not white, I will stop calling you Nazis. Oh, it's about, no, really? Then why hasn't anyone from European nations or white nations who has overstayed their visa been detained? Why did we import a bunch of rich South Africans? Oh, because it's about race, and so I'm going to call you Nazis. When they stop just skipping due process for those brown people, I will consider not calling you Nazis. When we are not building concentration camps, I will consider not calling you Nazis. When we're not deporting people to third countries that they have never been to, I will consider not calling you Nazis. Until then, you're Nazis, you're fascists, and you're fucking evil.
She does not mince words.
I have to vibe with her on everything but one thing, and that's that the Nazis kidnapped, tortured, and exterminated white people in Europe, which is probably the only reason why we hail them as the most evil people of all time, even though, you know, you had all of this other things happening in other dynasties and cultures. But Nazis had the audacity to do it to white people, and that was truly heinous, and the revisionist history that is, you know, white American history. But that's my only complaint. Sorry, I'm kind of a stickler for those little facts, but
no, that's a valid point.
Was it King Leopold? I don't remember. It was the fourth or the fifth.
Oh, in Belgium?
Yes, there was a Belgian king who killed like 10 million Congolese in Africa.
Yes, but you know, Leopold's not on anywhere of the scale as what Hitler is, because Hitler went after white people.
Right.
But
yep.
And I will say Donald Trump was right about one thing, and that's a very rare thing for him to be. When he started to say don't run in a straight line, I was about to be like, that's actually false. You do want to run as fast as you can in a straight line. Zigzagging is these people have never seen an alligator run, clearly. You zigzag, that thing's gonna catch you. But it can only run very quickly for very short distances.
I heard you got to find higher ground, like go on a car, right? Really? Where it's hard to reach.
Yeah, if you get up, obviously. Well, they can climb chain link fences. I saw one do it at my house once in Florida. So a fence isn't going to protect you. But you want to run straight as fast as you possibly can, or obviously get to higher ground.
He was probably thinking about school shooters, like they say, do a zigzag if there's a shooter with an AR-15.
Maybe. I mean, it's a really long held myth that you should run zigzag if an alligator.
Oh, really?
But then he corrected himself. He said they say you should run zigzag, and then you have a 1% more choice. So he basically equated the two, because running zigzag doesn't actually help you. But growing up in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Florida, I know these things.
I'm just going to ask our co-host a technical question real quick. Was there a second Instagram video, or we're going to play that later? There was a total of 3 videos, weren't there?
Yeah. We can play that later. Yeah.
Okay, we can play that now later. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we can play later. Yeah.
But it's crazy because the right says people like Che that went to the Congo and fought for black people was a murderer. But then people like King Leopold, they don't talk about that. It's just
And he's hardly the only one. I mean, if you look at the entire history of Africa and South America and Central America, I mean, honestly, you could say any single place.
Churchill in India,
North America.
Churchill permitted the famine to go on in India. Churchill was a genocider. People say he was a great anti-fascist, but he treated the Indians as a fascist.
Yeah, I have Eric Larson's book actually up here on my shelf, The Splendid and the Vile. Churchill was awful. Oh my God, he was the worst. Britain hated him. They basically were like, let's just let him run the war stuff and then he's out. And that's exactly what they did. I mean, the opening scene, I think, to Eric's book is, him in the bathtub demanding butt ass naked, and he was a big man, demanding that his secretary be in there in the bathroom with him when he's naked to write down his random thoughts on unrelated matters. And he has
he's smoking a cigar,
Yeah, like two people come by to have a serious meeting with him, and he's like still in the bath. He's like, bring them in. And he's having this. I'm like, what is wrong with this person? But no, he was terrible.
So how they say the emperor has no clothes? In that case, it was quite literal.
He literally had no clothes. He's praised for the way that he fought German aggression in Europe. Yeah. And on that singular note, you let him have it. He definitely waited a long time. He couldn't have cared less about the Holocaust.
Guess who praises him? Piers Morgan. Morgan, who was attacking Greta Thunberg while she was being kidnapped by Zionists. He loves Churchill.
He's Irish, by the way.
I thought he recently turning two. I saw an interview with him and Mehdi Hassan where he was like, I've been very hesitant to accept this evidence, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, it's hard for me to look at this and still feel the same way that I felt before. But, let's see how
about what he feels about Gaza?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Because he was all in for Israel. And he had a very seemed authentic, touching moment with Mehdi Hassan on his video program. And we'll see if that sticks.
He interviewed Kiriakou right after he came on our show.
Oh, there you go.
That was crazy.
Yeah, you heard John Kiriakou, the CIA whistleblower?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, great guy. Yeah.
Yeah, but the funny part about that is that we interviewed John Kiriakou before the JFK files came out, literally a few days before it came out. And we posted
and I asked him about
what
JFK,
he said, and a lot of it was very similar of what he said when it came to the assassination. And I was like,
by the way,
only 3,000 views and needs more.
Speaking of files, so this was Pam Bondi's thing. It was her thing. I have the Epstein files on my desk. I've seen them. I know. Everybody's going to see the Epstein clients list. We know this. We know who they are. Complete bullshit. They don't exist now. Really? And that's
they never, according to them, they never existed.
Elon said that Trump was on the list.
Yeah, of course he is. I mean, you can, the flight logs and stuff are public, and the phone logs and everything else from previous cases that have been brought up. And there's no question at all that Trump was a part of it. But at this point, I don't think that's who they're protecting. Because I don't think anybody would really give a shit. He's just gonna be like, oh, we hang out. He's got a beautiful island. He was my neighbor in Mar-a-Lago. His people would not care. Nothing would move on that. So I've also been one of those people who's gotten a lot of flack for saying, Epstein was a narcissist, an abusive narcissist who had already had run-ins with the law and barely gotten out of it. He was arrested again. He saw the writing on the wall. And when men like that are put in those positions, I think it's absolutely plausible they will kill themselves. People like that kill themselves when they're arrested in jail all the fucking time. They do it all the time. It's to evade the humiliation of the fallout and to deprive their victims of any sense or semblance of justice. It's like family annihilators when their wives find out that
it makes no difference to me because he's a pedophile, so I have no sympathy for him.
Oh, no, I'm not saying I had any sympathy for him, but I thought it was a plausible explanation that he just killed himself. I was like, really, it could go either way. I wouldn't be surprised either way. But to say a man like that would never. I'm like, have you met family annihilators who literally kill their wives and their children as soon as their wife finds out that they might be cheating?
Unless you believe Hitler fled to Argentina,
That's
which I
crazy.
don't necessarily believe.
Yeah.
He killed himself
he
too.
Yeah, he offed himself too. When he was back, men like that, when they're backed into a corner, will take themselves out and everyone around them. And so I was like, totally plausible. I don't think there's necessarily something here. But then they came out and said no records ever existed. And by the way, we lost 1 minute. The moment that Jeffrey Epstein died is the only footage that we don't have. And I was like, shit, somebody killed him. I was like, because there's no reason to bury that unless
just to suppose what you were saying about suicide. One of my heroes ended that way. It was a completely different situation than the fascists and the pedophiles we're talking about, though. It was Salvador Allende. They actually proved it because they weren't sure how he died. They proved it like 30 years later in an autopsy.
The president
that was when the presidential palace in Chile was being bombed. He was a great socialist leader down there, and he knew they were going to capture and torture and kill him. So he gave a radio address saying farewell while the building's being bombed, and he offed himself. I think that was an honorable way to go in that situation.
Well, no, I'm not being judgmental of people who kill themselves. I mean, I feel like Jeffrey Epstein is a monster who can be discussed in his own kind of existence. I've had, as a whistleblower, I've known far too many people who I've been very close to who have died that way.
Right.
Because it becomes too harsh. It's too much sometimes. And I would be lying if I said that I didn't think about it, or that there were not points where I was really, I think some people would be shocked to find out how close I was to that. And so I understand it, but we're not talking about people who are good people who are put under a tremendous amount of pressure or who are stalked, harassed, threatened, and all that stuff. We're talking about a man who had barely gotten out of trouble the first time, was just arrested in New York, not in Florida, and so all the same cronies aren't there. And
all the same cronies.
They're not there. There's their own types of cronies, but generally they bat for Team Blue most of the time, unless it's Mom Donnie.
Well, now New York City's going to have looks like a new mayor who's progressive, and all the right can say at all times of the hour is he's a Muslim socialist. Even if he was, so what? Like, that's all they can say. They can't.
I don't even think they care about the socialist part.
What's that?
They don't even care about the Democratic Socialist part. They could drop that because it's too complicated to explain to their followers. And they're starting to just unveil it. Like the post from one of them that said something like, 24 years ago we had 9/11 and now we might elect a Muslim mayor. I was like, you just came right out and fucking said it there.
and they're
like,
eating it
God.
up. I mean, you have to be Islamophobic to still justify what you're doing to God. So there's plenty of Christians there, by the way. But you have to. I mean, there's no other, like, the people that are still hold on to the views that they're somehow defending themselves. They have to come from a position of hate when you've had a genocide going on for so long. But I wanted to ask you a question, Rebekah, because I was curious. A lot of educators left Florida or opted for private schools or different jobs over DeSantis' crazy policies, changing social studies, the program, and all that. My question is, before he leaves office, do you think he's going to go into other departments of education, maybe literature or whatnot?
He's right now desperate for relevance. He was humiliated in the primary, and he's kind of like that guy. I can never remember his name. I think he was from Wisconsin, but he was supposed to be the new golden boy of the GOP back in 2008 or 12-ish. Scott something.
I think I know who you're talking about, but I don't remember their name either.
That's the point. We don't remember his name because he became insignificant.
Our caller said he'd be right back. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, Scott Walker. And so
Scott Walker, okay.
He tanked and then just disappeared. So DeSantis right now is trying to find anything to get himself back in circulation.
Well, the Democratic version of that would be Howard Dean. I actually met him once. Remember how Howard Dean, like, they played that clip? Repeated it again and again. And then he was done. I think that was the first time they did that. Then they started using it to attack other opponents. But
now none of those things matter anymore.
Now politics is so crazy that would be like irrelevant with all the crazy.
It's really hard to explain to like young people who are like 20, 21 that it hasn't always been this way. Like I was a very politically astute child, like as a young child.
The child that read the newspaper.
Yeah, I mean, like not everybody around me or even my family was. And so I was aware that things were very different back then. And it's weird because I'm only 35 and I'm looking at kids who are like 10, 15 years younger than me who have no working memory of what life was before that.
Yeah, I'm a little bit older than you, but one of my favorite Mark Twain quotes, by the way, about being informed, the newspaper. Remember how it goes? He said, if you read the newspaper, you're informed. What did he say? He said, if you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you read the newspaper, you're misinformed.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, when Mark Twain was around, there were like all of 3 newspapers. Now you can select your level of disinformation that you want.
Right. But he saw how the corporations were encroaching on the media in the beginning. It was very critical of it. But anyways, I want to get into the next question because you alluded to it a little bit on Jordan Sheridan's show. I only saw like a portion of it. But like a lot of people are comparing Alligator Alcatraz to a concentration camp, maybe even Alligator Auschwitz. Like, do you think that that's real, that people like Laura Loomer that have influence, like they're calling for a genocide? Do you think this could be real? I don't know if on a massive scale, but like there could be deaths so far from like what we're seeing.
There's already been people who have died, at least a dozen, in these concentration camps across the country. It is an ethnic cleansing because they're being almost indiscriminate as to the legal status of brown people from Spanish-speaking countries that they're picking up and transporting. We've seen them take American residents and U.S. citizens into other countries, deport them to other countries. There was a graduate student nearby here, Khalil, who was taken to Louisiana, what's kind of known as in D.C., they kind of make a joke of it about the Reed prison, which is supposed to be like a hellhole. There really are prisons like that in Louisiana that are like third world hellholes. And they sent him there for 3 months. I'm an American permanent resident. And so we already know that they're getting caught up in those things. And that list was a curated list of targets from an APAC associated group who wanted to go after all the people who had something to do with protests on campus. And so,
he was a negotiator. He wasn't even leading those protests. He was a negotiator between the campus and the protesters. So he wasn't even like one of the
frankly
most
irrelevant. It's irrelevant what his role was.
Right.
He was engaging in activity that is protected by the Constitution. He has legal permanent American status, and he's a permanent resident. His wife is U.S. citizen. He missed the birth of his child. And was held in a, kind of DC villain level type of prison system for months.
And they wouldn't even let him see his child after he was born for I don't know, a couple of months or something. Just
they denied her to be able to go see him. So it's these things that was how it started. People seem to forget, but that was like the first round of people were political dissidents, which is exactly how it happened in Nazi Germany. But now, they're talking openly about the ethnic cleansing of all Hispanic and Latino people from this country, like the tweet that you referenced earlier. By removing an entire subset of people, you are trying to remove an ethnicity from the country through not just forced displacement, but through intimidation and fear. And then you're putting them into tent camps. They're even tents, for fuck's sake. You're putting them into concentrated camps in the middle of the other day, right? Yeah, it flooded the other day in the middle of the bayou. And if you look at that footage, they still have everything plugged in while it's submerged in water, which, is a great idea to just put your electronics, like somebody's laptop cord is like strung across it. And I was like, they really did find the dumbest people possible. And
are you talking about Alligator Alcatraz or in Louisiana?
Alligator Alcatraz, which we're not calling that, by the way. I don't know, like, if I was the first person to say it, because I think we all kind of thought it, but I was a very early pioneer for calling it Alligator Auschwitz.
Right.
Because we are not letting them get away with making this some kind of catchy, cool thing that they're going to sell merchandise on Etsy for. It is a concentration camp. And much like in Nazi Germany, people are going to take pictures outside of it as if it's some like great thing. That's what they literally would have, like entertainment tours of some of these camps before they turned into extermination.
There was a woman who was related to a Nazi. I think it was like her great aunt or something. And they had a picture of her great aunt outside of a concentration camp with a picture smiling. And then they had her outside one of the detainment camps. And it's so like clear history repeating itself.
Yeah. And we already know that from the over 100,000 people that they've essentially kidnapped over the last almost 7 months, that only 8% of those people have any violent criminal prosecutions or convictions in their history. So that means 92% of the people that they are arresting have no violent criminal history, none at all. And they're just kidnapping them in broad daylight in the back of unmarked vans wearing masks. I mean, and a lot of them, there's a lot of speculation that these aren't even officially ICE members, that these are bounty hunters, who are getting paid per head. And
I heard that a lot of them are members of the Proud Boys too.
Yeah, I've heard that too. And so, I mean, I haven't independently verified any of that, but I've seen it from sources that generally do. I mean, there's nothing to call this but a concentration camp. And, it's just.
Jamar, are you talking? We can't hear you. I heard your mouth moving, but we can't hear you. Well, anyways, while he's doing that, I wanted to mention also, like when Trump came out with the, what do they call it? The birthright. The birthright executive order yet recently. Yeah. I said, well, the first people that got to go now are Barron and Melania, because Melania came fraudulently on an Einstein visa as a model, and her son was born, from her. So they'd have to both go to Slovenia, I guess.
Well, it's the way that they want to do it is based in some very archaic law that said that if one of your parents was a U.S. citizen, then you would automatically qualify for U.S. citizenship, regardless of where you're born. So in that case, Donald Trump was a citizen, so Barron would still be a citizen, but it does nothing to protect Melania Trump. I mean, it's really, we've heard that vulgar term now for decades, anchor baby. And I don't think we pushed back on it enough, because they're literally trying to reinterpret settled case law.
People hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I was going to say that the irony about anchor baby being used in a negative way is that most people that hold that view call themselves pro-life. So they don't mind dehumanizing babies, but they're just all they care really about is the fetus.
No, they don't even care about
I had a question.
That, right? Yeah,
controlling women.
Good point. Yeah.
But
we're going to say, Jamar, we can hear you a little better now.
Can you guys hear me better now?
Yeah.
How's that?
It's a little light, but we can still hear you.
It's a little light?
No, I hear you better now. Yeah, now you're speaking up. I can hear you.
Yeah. So I had a few questions from forgive me, my Asian friends. I don't know how to say red note in Chinese yet. I'm trying so hard. But they were asking, they heard that there were incinerators there.
No.
Is that confirmed, or is that just a rumor?
No, that is, if we're following the playbook, we're a few years away from that. Frankly, you don't need an incinerator in the Everglades. The bio and chemical processes of the swamp itself will sink and destroy bodies quite efficiently. Ironically, the thing that you would probably have to worry least about in that environment is alligators. They tend to be generally non-confrontational to anything that looks like it could potentially be a danger to it, like humans. Those giant alligators that you see that are, rumored to be like 100 years old, they got old because they're smart, and they don't go after prey that could potentially be dangerous to them. Now, you go and you screw with one, or you happen upon a nest or something like that, that's a completely different thing. But of all the things that could kill you out there, they're actually not that high on the list. Although I
remember when I went, after I went to Standing Rock, I went to an encampment in the Everglades with my Seminole comrades, and we were taking a riverboat out to Tier Island, and an alligator approached our boat, and the Seminole clicked its tongue and said a few words in its native language, and the gator left.
You could have poked it with an oar and it would have left.
What's that?
I mean, You could have poked it with an oar and it would have left. They might be curious, but they're not going to generally attack unprovoked. I mean, most of the horrific stories that you hear are either children who were not supervised and are small, or people who went to swim and try to fuck with an alligator.
I haven't talked to my Seminole comrades in a while. Have you heard anything from the native communities near the Everglades commenting on this so-called alligator Alcatraz?
Yeah, that was
they've been very active, actually. One of my friends from the area went out to their protest. I think it was on the 3rd or 4th. And they had the whole community out there. The indigenous communities took control kind of the narrative in that area and the protest. They wanted to be very peaceful. There are ancestral tribal lands all over that place. One of the things I did working for and with Louisiana was identifying from satellite data unmarked or previously unmapped Native American mass burial graves, and there are several in this area. So they focused more on that kind of kinship with the environment and that kind of syncing with nature than they did a lot of the other hyperbole, because they wanted to be very clear about what their intent was. And they're not mistaken. There is no, according to any of the drone or satellite imagery that I've seen, even semi-permanent septic system at this location. So there are no like physical structures. It's trailers and tents. And these people who are being kept in these tents, which are aluminum steel, which I'll get into that in a second. But they have barely enough space to get out of the bunk and then walk to the exit. That's it. And they're just beds. So they're pretty much just sitting or sleeping on the bed all day, every day. Lights are kept on 24/7. It's, 100 and something degrees out there on an airstrip. And the things that are probably more likely to kill you out there are, a giant bug or a mosquito-borne virus or COVID or influenza running rampant through this area, because we know they're not going to bother vaccinating people unless they're rich, which is how Florida goes. But yeah, I watched the interview with Kevin Guthrie, who is now the current head of Florida Department of Emergency Management. I used to work with him. And I was just floored when he said in an interview that these were level 3 wind graded, these tents. A level 3 wind grade is 110 miles per hour. Your standard trailer, even if it's grounded, cannot withstand 110 miles per hour. Right. Literally, if it's a category 2 storm and you live within 20 miles of the coast, we're saying evacuate your trailer. And these aren't even trailers that are grounded and kind of structured into the ground like the nicer ones that you see. These are temp trailers that are meant to be pulled behind a truck. And so the idea that any of this could withstand anything beyond a severe thunderstorm is just flatly false. I mean, at 30 miles. Just
blatant lies.
And I was surprised to see Kevin say that, because then he mentioned, these are aluminum poling. They have the structure of as aluminum. I'm like, aluminum is barely above plastic. Like if you had said steel or iron or something else, something heavier, that would have been more substantial. But the fact that you just said it's aluminum as if that meant it's a good thing, I was like, that's like the easiest material to bend, warp, mutilate, blow away. Like that is the worst of all the things. Aside from, I guess we're supposed to be grateful it's not PVC pipe, which was the implication there. And I was like, I couldn't believe Kevin would say that, but I know he's probably going on every day.
Real quick, the other video, is it the Texas situation? It was the Mexicans that went out to Texas to help, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, because I saw you commenting, Rebekah, on I think on TikTok about what's going on in Texas. I haven't really gotten into the details, but I know that Claudia Sheinbaum,
I'm gonna play one silent for y'all while y'all talk. I have
the Mexican president. Yeah, you can play it silent. She sent a group of Mexican nationals to help out with what's going on over there. If you wanted to comment on what's really going on there.
Yeah, so I kind of put like a way longer than usual explainer on my TikTok on YouTube. I think it's actually like 6 minutes, which is a pretty long format for TikTok, because of all the blaming and the conspiracy theories and the wild accusations about who was in fault and why. I like to first dispel the notion that the National Weather Service was at any way at fault here, because they issued the proper warnings at the proper times as they're supposed to do. That doesn't mean that there haven't been instances where cuts to the National Weather Service have compromised safety. They did at the Jackson, Kentucky office earlier this year in May, when there was an overnight tornado and they had no overnight meteorologists, and the warnings were delayed until after the tornado had already gone through the first small town. But those were poor people in Kentucky, so apparently nobody cares. That did cause lives. This situation was not that. All of the warnings were issued as they should have been, with plenty of time. If we're talking about the camp situation, every other camp on that river evacuated in time. Actually, some of the people who were counselors in some of the buildings for that specific camp were alerted and evacuated their campers without any prompting from anybody else. What happened at that camp, and let's also keep in mind that's 27 out of 105 now, I believe, dead, and 150 maybe still missing. That was the complete failure of the people in charge of the camp. the camp administration. That is who is to blame. I know they're dead, and it sucks to blame somebody who's already dead because you don't feel like you can get justice, but that's who to blame with that, not the National Weather Service. There are also no cloud seeding or atmospheric experiments ongoing at this time, other than the very long ongoing experiment we've been doing with the global climate since the beginning of the industrial age, in which we've extracted very volatile gases from the earth and put them into the atmosphere, which has altered the climate. Other than that climate alteration, none of that was at play here. It's ridiculous sometimes that you have to correct these things, but oftentimes we find ourselves having to correct lower and lower forms of disinformation just to make sure. What did happen was that climate change has made the atmosphere warmer. Warmer air can hold more moisture. That's just basic physics. And the atmosphere we've already seen has increased its ability to hold moisture 20 to 30%. 20 to 30% is a large percentage increase. It's also made it flash floods less predictable and more intense. And so all of those climate factors were at play. But also there was the accusations about, state officials denying budget funding for sirens along the river. And then there were also localized issues as to why there wasn't someone like alerting camps that they knew were across the river. That might be something, but at the end of the day, as far as the camps go, that's on the people who ran the camps. That was the people who were there, who knew that, the weather was turning and they had a responsibility, especially considering this place flooded out like 30 years ago, to keep an eye on that. And they did not. They failed, and they got those children killed. Everybody else along the river who listened got their kids out in time. They did not. But there were also, again, at least, 75 other people who were killed, mostly because this happened in the middle of the night, in the early morning, and people were sleeping. That's when the warnings went out. And natural disasters that happen when people are sleeping are oftentimes the worst. And that's an unfortunate reality in a lot of natural disasters.
Well, I also remember you mentioned something about funding, that the town requested help, didn't get the help, and instead they did it. They used the funding towards something on the border that they had to reverse. What was that exactly?
So it wasn't instead of, but they were told they did not have the budget for the $1 million request for Kerr County in order to improve their alert systems, which included adding sirens, but also different types of alert mechanisms. So they opted, I think, in the previous year for text messages where they could have done other types of alerts, and to have more resources to dispatch if there's like a major emergency in this type of situation, and they were denied funding. And in the same state funding round, that last time they funded this floating razor wire. And I think there was a lot of coverage of it back when it happened, to basically kill people who tried to swim up the river to get out of Mexico. And that was ruled unconstitutional. They spent $1 million.
Christ, man.
Yeah. They spent $1 million just fighting that lawsuit and ended up having to remove it all anyways. And the whole budget for the Kerr County emergency system was $1 million. And that's just what they spent in the lawsuit. And if you started to look at how much money is spent defending these ideological, tyrannistic bullshit cases, especially like in Florida, we're talking about tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars spent defending.
Why do you think Mexico, with everything that's going on, still sent help to Texas?
Because their president is a practical person, because their president realizes that Mexican people are being demonized, and they, as a people, have done nothing wrong. And they're going to show Americans that by offering help when they need it most. Because even if you don't like the president of another country, you're talking about search and rescue operations for 150 people that spans a very large geographic area that, they need the help. And so Mexico offered it.
I don't think Trump gets along with Zelaya de Castro or Claudia Sheinbaum, two progressive women in Latin America that are supposed to
pit bulls. Borders. They don't play.
Yeah, I can imagine the phone conversations. They're not going well.
No, she may not even have gone through them. She could have just gone through Texas. I mean, there was no need for her to contact the president. She could have gone straight to Abbott. And
the tariff war didn't really work out for him, right? Because you have people standing up to him like Claudia Sheinbaum that said, "No, we have so many, exports in the United States. Do you really want that retaliation?"
Yeah,
right?
I mean, a lot of people push back on this whole tariff thing. That's why it's a complete mess. But it was also kind of just a whole scam to lower prices on something so his people could buy it all and then change the tariffs again so that they would make a big profit. But no, I just think it's as simple as she's pragmatic and she realizes the goodwill that it will do. And, she has resources that she can allocate to help find people, a good number of which are children. And so she did.
Yeah.
I believe when they had fires in LA, Mexico sent some of their best firefighters to take care of that as well. So it's good that they're showing solidarity with their neighbors despite all the problems.
And this happened in New Mexico right here. This is New Mexico.
Oh my.
Whole nother flood just happened. This happened yesterday.
With all this climate change, man.
No, it's weather machines. Because apparently the large-scale operations of industrialization over hundreds of years, potentially regional climate modifications for thousands through, industrial agriculture, is not enough to affect the climate. But some weather machine gizmo that somebody like me has behind a Wizard of Oz curtain is controlling all of these floods. But the funniest part of that is that if liberals actually did have control of weather machines, we would be using it for good.
I think it's absolutely crazy that people think that people got weather machines like that. Like, that's insane.
Let me pull up my complicated weather machine that I keep in the basement. It's
all part of the conspiracy, man.
It's so insane. And now Marjorie Taylor Greene has picked up on DeSantis's bill to ban the disbursements of any aerosol or chemicals that could modify or control local weather or climate. And I'm like, you're going to exempt fossil fuels from that, right? We already know that you are. Because the single greatest contributor to modification of the climate is fossil fuels.
Things are so insane right now that at times, what's her name? Marjorie Taylor Greene is actually sounds like the voice of reason. She's nuts as well.
But then she comes out with a crazy, we're going to.
Yeah, but then she says something that makes sense sometimes. And I'm like, what? She said that? Like she said, we shouldn't bomb Iran. What? So she's actually saying things so crazy that she'll even sound sane sometimes, Well,
they are true anti-Semites. So, they're like old school anti-Semites. And so they're not on Team AIPAC. And they don't want to help Israel do anything. And for them, it's more about, not risking anything that we have for people that they see as lesser than it is about.
That's not an anti-Zionist position. It's an anti-Semitic position. People should know the difference.
Oh, yeah. People know the difference. They're just afraid of being called mean words.
Right.
Do you think also I really just don't understand when it comes to just the whole concept of like believing in climate change is that a lot of these people that are against it, especially in red states, have family members. And it's like, how do you make a conclusion that this wasn't climate change? How do you just think that this is like is it just a faith? I'm just for I don't have conservatives really on this show, so I'm just asking, like, is it the faith mechanism that you go by 24/7? Because it's like, seriously, dude, like it's getting hotter and it's abnormal freaking weather. I live in New England. It's like switching up all the damn time. And it wasn't like that when I was young.
I remember like one day it was hotter in Alaska than in Florida. Like that's how crazy the climate's changing.
It's you can call it hydroclimate or climate whiplash, which causes this kind of back and forth, wet, dry, hot, cold kind of environment, which is actually more damaging for ecosystems and terrestrial life than it is if it was a steady increase in one direction. So I actually had the honor last year of meeting the tobacco whistleblower who back decades ago proved that the tobacco industry was lying about the risks of tobacco products.
Was that the one Mark Ruffalo played?
I think he did play him in a movie. I haven't seen that movie, but I do remember hearing about that. Yes. But I got to meet him last year, and he's really old, but he's like the funniest, sassiest like
Nice.
person that I've ever met. And he was like, yeah, I mean, for 30 years at least, they paid academics to do research to find that, you know, it was totally safe and was totally fine. And, you know, it was the same group, like the Heartland, or what do they call them? The Heartland, is it just group? It's the Heartland group who does all of the disinformation about climate change, also did it about tobacco. And so it's the same group of people playing the same game that they did for big tobacco, just with climate change, which is really, it's not all that complicated.
What was interesting about his story, and I'm not like an expert on it, but I've heard about it, is he admitted, he said, had the tobacco industry offered me a large sum of money, I might have taken it. But he said the moment that they threatened his family, it pissed him off, where he's like, no, I'm going after these guys. So they made the wrong move with him.
Yeah, now that I know him a little better, I think he was probably joking. He makes a very lot of dark jokes.
I do know. Yeah, if you piss the wrong person off, they're going to become braver.
I mean, I would hope that if I make that joke at some point, well, you know, they could have just given me a big sack of money and I would have shut up. That people would at least have enough context in my character to know that it's just a joke. Yeah. But he is hilarious, and so he very much was joking. But you know, it's not just him. It was the lady who blew the whistle on microplastics, which were non-existent, you know, up until like the 1970s, and now they're in the DNA and in the bloodstream of every single person on this planet.
When they cut back on the plastic, it was too little, too late. No.
Yeah, well, it was the specific type of byproduct that was made. Made by the same people who make the majority of masks.
Remember that kid who found the invention of how to get rid of plastic islands? They never implemented it.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, he found a way to get rid of them, and they gave him like an award, but then they never did anything about it. You still have these plastic islands ruining the oceans.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways of removing it that nobody wants to really pay for or invest. They just want to look like they're patting somebody on the back.
One of them is the size of the state of Texas. It's like a huge, massive plastic island. Yeah.
Yeah, you can just basically surface trawl and get it all out, but that's expensive. And you know, the person that I recently heard about found a way to create basically recyclable bricks on the ship. So instead of, you know, like hauling it to the nearest probably very ecologically sensitive island in the area, there's some kind of mechanism on board where they can compress it and put it into these bricks, which then can be used in other things, not like, you know, grade certified construction, but for, you know, playgrounds and other things like that. That was recent. So that might be the same person that you're talking about. But if it is, because I was at the United Nations Ocean Conference last month in June, they're still looking for funders. And so you can have an amazing idea and good, brilliant people leading it. If you aren't given the money to actually scale it, then it doesn't matter.
So I've got a really good question for you. Greta Thunberg, obviously, I'm a big admirer of hers.
Who is also not a white savior, by the way.
Absolutely
for
not.
the haters.
I mean, she put her life on the line. This answer she gave when she returned to Europe says it all. When they asked her, how did the Israelis treat you? She didn't talk about it. She said, whatever I went through is nothing in comparison with what the Palestinians went through. And come to find out, they tortured her. They played music all night. They wouldn't let her sleep. They did sleep deprivation on this young woman. And she didn't complain about it. One of her comrades mentioned it. She said, what I went through is nothing compared to the Palestinians. She put her life on the line on the flotilla. So anyways, I wanted to ask you my question about her. Since I want to say she abandoned, because it's all related. The war industry destroys the environment. But since she's put a refocus on human rights and not exclusively the environment, a lot of people have abandoned support for her.
It's not because she's focusing on human rights. Greta's take on climate change was that it was always a human rights issue for the whole world's population, that, you know, it impacts the most vulnerable among us, as most natural, you know, disaster situations do. It's only because she's speaking out against this one specific human rights catastrophe that people are coming after her. And the amount of environmental degradation that's occurred there, the amount of toxic chemicals, the amount of explosives that have been indiscriminately dropped on this very small area of land is absolutely an environmental concern. And if she was doing this in Sudan or any other place, I don't think there would be anybody vocally criticizing her the way that they are, or like just jumping ship altogether. It's because it's this one specific conflict, if you will. Invasion. I think invasion is more appropriate. But
Oh yeah, it's definitely a straight up genocide. Like
it's a conflict that the last pope called the Zionist terrorists over, where they
isn't
literally
it great that the
sniped
new pope is about it too?
Palestinian nuns in Gaza. They're going after Christians in the West Bank as well, of course, and in East Jerusalem. So it's not an Islam versus Judaism thing. It's a political conflict that's that's
Zionism is a white supremacist ideology.
Yeah,
it's a white supremacy. Said
Zionism is a white supremacist ideology.
Absolutely.
And so it inherently is going to target other, no matter what other is. I mean, they could be closer to Egypt and, see African people around them and view them as the enemy. It doesn't really matter who's in proximity to them. They're going to demonize them. They're going to make them seem less than human so that they can justify continued and expanding colonization in that region. It's just a white supremacist ideology.
And
so
they
many
never
of them
mentioned
have fled to Cyprus and other parts of Europe, and then they had to put a stop on how many Israelis could leave when the Iranians were bombing back. And it's like the Palestinians are fighting to stay. They want to stay in Gaza. Like, it's so clear the contrast between indigenous people, and some Jews have indigenous ties to the region, but a lot of them, the Zionists, are Europeans. And so how quick were they willing to go back to Europe? And then the Palestinians are fighting to stay. That's quite a contrast.
Well, most Palestinians don't have dual passports in the EU or with the United States. So even if they wanted to flee, they were never allowed. Israel now controls the Rafah crossing. So everything is being controlled by Israel, which is we're going to look back and be like, why didn't somebody just blow up this fucking blockade? Why didn't we do something earlier? Just bomb the blockade up, not the people of Israel. Because the indiscriminate killing of civilians is what is the problem in the first place.
Right.
But the actual blockade, blow it up. I mean, and help the people. This is,
Yemen's trying, but Yemen needs help. Just for people.
By the way, the best way to blow it up is get rid of the Iron Dome, because the moment the Israelis lose the capability to defend themselves from the majority of the rockets and the missiles, that's the moment they'll go to the negotiation table.
I mean, they call it the Iron Dome, but I think we've seen through the last few months that it's by no means an impregnable.
It's not impregnable at all, because they underestimated the Iranians' capabilities.
And the Iranians said because they were attacked unprovoked on the suspicion that one day they might develop something that they might use against Israel.
Isn't that how we went to the Middle East for 20 years and spent $2 trillion?
Iraq was the same thing. It was a preventative war, which is completely against international law.
A big part of the reason that we went to Iraq in the first place. It was Israeli intelligence that claimed that they had weapons of mass destruction.
Bibi Netanyahu back then wanted us to go into Iraq too.
In 1992, Netanyahu testified to Congress. I was 3 years old. That's how long this guy has been at it. In 1992, he testified to Congress that Iran was going to develop a nuclear weapon within weeks or months, and that it was vitally critical that the United States immediately intervene to stop this. 1992.
And by the way, they have elections in Iran. They have a parliament. And I'm not saying
let's not give the Iranian regime a pass where it doesn't deserve one.
No, I'm not saying they need to get a pass. I'm saying they have some type of democratic system there. But the point I was trying to make is the Shah now, well, not the Shah, the son of the Shah, the prince, he called himself the Prince of Iran. He's giving speeches that he wants to return democracy to Iran. His father was a terrible leader. He wants to return monarchy to Iran.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you look at Iran before the revolution in 1979, it was one of the most progressive places in the Middle East. And
I'd say it was progressive when it was under Mossadegh. Mossadegh was very progressive.
The United States got involved with some coups in the Middle East back then too, and decided that we wanted to insert people who could destabilize the region, because the United States benefits most when places of rich natural resources are unstable.
You said Mossadegh. Isn't it pronounced Musada?
No, I always say Mossadegh, and I've heard it referred to his name as Mossadegh as well. You might be thinking like Mossad, like Israeli Mossad, but no, it's Mossadegh.
I always heard Musada. All right, so I heard it wrong.
I've never heard it that way, no.
But
I generally, if I'm referencing a person and not saying their name, it's because I want to make sure I don't butcher it. So if I'm ever that one guy, it's because I know it, see it written, and I just don't want to say something that's not right.
Yeah, it was the reason why I wanted to make sure that it was correct, because Mossadegh. I guess it's Mossadegh. You are the historian, so we're gonna go by you.
Yeah, I mean, I studied to be a historian, and I studied the history of the region. And when academics have referred to him, it's pronounced Mossadegh. Is that the Persian pronunciation? I'm not 100% sure, but that's how it's generally
what I was going to ask right there.
By English speakers.
Is that the Persian pronunciation?
But I've never heard it referred to the way you said it. That sounds almost like Mossad. I've heard it as Mossad.
Is either Mossad or
no, that's not Mossad. It's Mossadegh. It has a Q on the end. Yeah.
Okay.
There is a Mossad, but that's
that's the Israeli Mossad. Yeah.
Intelligence organization. Yeah. But anyways, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, so he's been at that since 1992, and the single most destructive force in the Middle East for peace and stability is Israel.
And they actually do have nuclear weapons. That's what nobody's talking about. They're the
and uninspected, unregulated nuclear weapons.
Right. That JFK tried to get rid of. JFK tried to get
I'm not going down that road now.
When he was president. What's that?
We get to JFK, I'm checking out. I'm gonna have
right. I'm not trying to bring in the conspiracy.
We'll need John Kiriaki for that.
He was publicly against the start of the nuclear program in Israel, and he was against nuclear weapons in general. He started a denuclearization program with Khrushchev. So he didn't like seeing nuclear weapons in the Middle East or anywhere. So
he also wanted to normalize relations with Cuba, which would have really pissed off the Russians. So there was a long list of people who wanted to kill JFK. It wasn't just a lone crazy person with a gun. We know that because he wouldn't have been shot by one of the most important players in New Orleans politics at the time in the middle of broad daylight on camera right before it happened if he wasn't. As far as speculation, I'm not privy to classified documents in the issue of JFK's assassination.
Yeah, because Trump promised to have it unredacted, and it was plenty redacted. And then, of course,
he also promised we'd have the Epstein files. So, and apparently those have never existed.
That was crazy.
Also promised we'd have the
That was crazy.
He also promised we'd have a new healthcare plan the first time he was president. And
he said before he's inaugurated, the Ukraine-Russian war would end. Before he's inaugurated, as soon as he's elected.
And on day one, something else would happen. I forget what it was.
Yeah.
The conflict in the Middle East would end as well.
Yeah, the great negotiator, the great deals. He didn't even write his own book. He didn't even write the
He replaced him. You know what? That's how you can tell the difference between evil stupid and evil smart. Because Netanyahu knows how to play Donald Trump like a fucking fiddle. The whole Nobel Prize thing, I mean, as far as manipulating, perfect.
So
I think that DeSantis is evil smart. He knows how to get things done, unlike Trump. He knows how to pass laws. I mean, he was an evil attorney, right?
I used to think that. But I realized over time, getting closer and closer to the people who are more familiar with him, many of which have turned on him.
Yeah.
He had a very strong infrastructure. He's much smarter than Trump, but DeSantis again had those people around him who were his Stephen Millers and his Bannons and everything else as well. And a lot of that was just facade. It was just extremely online, bots and bot networks. I mean, to this day, I don't know if you know who Chris Boozy is. He tracks disinformation campaigns online. DeSantis bought the largest single purchase of followers since Boozy started tracking it in 2020.
He's got all these fake followers, so they kind of embellish his image.
Yeah, it was hundreds of thousands in a single thing. All anon accounts that all started following him within a 2-day period from miscellaneous IP addresses all over the world. It was clearly bought and paid for. And I mean, he also tracked Meghan Markle's disinfo campaign and the Amber Heard disinfo campaign. So basically all these, So, and a large chunk of that was dedicated to me. So,
yeah, I mean, this will be the last thought. I mean, I got to say, I did see a difference from when I announced that you were going to be on the show from last time, because literally the first 5 minutes of putting your name into my ethos of platforms, haters just came out of nowhere, but it was quiet today.
So far, they have
also, we stood up to them. I think that their goal was for us to cancel the show out of embarrassment or whatever, and we pushed back hard against them then. Now they haven't even bothered.
They hate that. That's the minute that you say no, they don't know what to do. I mean, they were so aggressive. So I was invited in 2021, spring of 21, when they were trying to hit me with everything they possibly could all at once. to get my keynote address to the largest academic organization in my field canceled. You know what it's like to be like 31 years old and be invited to give the keynote at the annual meeting for the largest academic? That is huge. That is like something I was like, I'll be like 50 or 60 before this ever happens, if it ever does. They doxed the many, like hundreds of sponsors of the event and told people to harass them. They threatened the president of the organization. He told me he's been in climate science for 30 years and he had never seen an organized smear campaign that was that sophisticated. And they told them, no, we're not canceling it. We're going to add additional security. And we're moving forward. And I was so grateful for that, because I would have been not only heartbroken to have the opportunity taken away, but heartbroken that it was over trolls. You know, it's like you realize that most of the people who will respond to you are like the same 3 or 4 people who have many different accounts. And there's the same accounts that have been doing it for the last 5 years. And it's like, you know, they're not real people. The internet's not real life. Like, unless it's a person you can identify, that you can conversate with, these are not real people. And they should not be driving either discourse or policy or hell or any kind of decision.
Do you think they're driven by like AI somewhat?
Some of them are. And that's so easy now to like either buy or program. But there are people who are so profoundly sad and pathetic in their own lives that they will spend all day, every day, stalking and harassing complete strangers online. And this is hardly unique to me. I mean, we're used to this happening to being like actors and singers. And we look at those people like, holy shit, that's fucking crazy. You sent this lady like 1,000 messages on Twitter. Like, that's insane. You know, this person needs to go to jail. But almost up to the point where they show up to their actual house, nothing ever happens to them, because we don't enforce the very scant online harassment and stalking laws that we already have in place until something gets physically violent. And so there's really no point in having those laws to begin with. But we were used to happening to celebrities, and a lot of us would brush it off as like, well, you know, they're famous. They get paid $20 million a picture. You know, they know that comes with the territory. But during COVID, it started to be turned towards scientists, a lot of scientists, not just myself, like Peter Hotez, who, you know, was nominated for the Nobel Prize for developing the no-cost COVID vaccine, which probably saved 2 billion lives. People have shown up physically to his house and harassed him. I was actually on the phone with him once when this happened.
He should be given a prize for what he did. Instead, he
was nominated for the Nobel, so that's not nothing.
He got the nomination, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even to get like to be a formal nominee is a lifetime achievement that, you know, 99 out of 100 scientists will never be able to do. But this is true. It's been true of climate scientists for a long time as well. I mean, if you look at what Michael Mann did, he actually fought back, sued some of the people who said some of this, and won. He won like $2 million. But it took.
You don't mean the filmmaker Michael Mann. You mean the environmental scientist, yeah?
Yes, the environmental scientist, Dr. Mann. He actually won, but it took like 15 years for that case to be settled. So yeah, I mean, and the law is not going in a favorable direction on this issue, especially when it's so obvious how easy it is to manipulate, at least online opinion, using artificial intelligence and cheap warehouse, you know, people who are got 50 computers in front of them and just keep harassing people. As long as it is inexpensive and efficient, they will continue to do it.
Well, we just cannot let ourselves be intimidated by them, and then they lose power.
Yeah. I mean, look.
And most people now are like, unless it's somebody they recognize, like a name of somebody that they know. Like if I come after somebody, people are going to know right away that I stand on business, and there's a reason I don't like somebody. There's not going to be any question that I'm part of some, you know, bot campaign to defame some person that I've never met. I mean, the person I probably go after most publicly, who's not a Republican shithead, is Jared Moskowitz, who basically is a Republican shithead. And I worked with him and knew him personally. We were friends and had a relationship. And I go after him because he is the worst wolf in sheep's clothing that we have in Congress, not just from a statistical standpoint, because I analyzed every member of the House and Senate to see who was voting and proposing bills and legislation most often with the Republicans and voting against Democratic initiatives most often, despite the majority of Democratic support. He was number one. And, you know, I've been trying to warn people about him for 5 years, and he's all bomb Iran and yada, yada, yada. But that is, again, somebody I know. And the personal issues between us, he knows exactly what that is about and why, and he knows he's never going to be able to get my forgiveness for it.
I don't really put up with betrayal either. When you know the person personally, sometimes you feel it even more.
If he had just been a turncoat like Fetterman, I'd probably just occasionally trash talk him whenever he comes up in the
literally
news.
Our last guest was a guy that was thrown out by Fetterman.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I was just like, who is this asking? You need to resign.
Yeah, he's a professor from Pittsburgh, a friend of mine, and we interviewed him. He's the last guest that we had, and there's a video out there of him asking Fetterman a simple question as one of his constituents, and
spends a lot of time in Syria.
Guy physically throw him off. Like, this is a internationally respected academic, and they're throwing him like he's some homeless guy that showed up, and then like throwing him out of the event for asking him a simple question. It's ridiculous, Fetterman.
Yeah. I mean, they're really not tolerant of any kind of pushback at these events. They only ever advertise within their own known networks. I've been noticing that lately too. There are a lot of kind of middle road Democrats who don't contact local progressive or appear to be progressive aligned organizations, political organizations, even if they're Democratic organizations.
Is Cuomo going to run as an independent now? I mean, these are people that have been partisan.
Alex, I gotta go.
Okay.
Gotta go. But I don't know what's going to happen in New York City. We'll see.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
I know what I think should happen, and I'm hopeful for what will happen. I hope almost that Cuomo and Adams get all the centrist Republican light voters, because that still would give Mondani the victory. I mean, the Republican there has gotten the guy who wears like the old like Russian beret type thing everywhere he goes, he's gotten the same amount of votes every single time. Like it's not going to change. We know exactly what's going to him. But I have never seen such blatant racism against a political candidate in my life, not even against Obama. I thought, we got Barack Hussein Obama. They are not going to let this man get in the White House.
Yeah.
I was like, but
Obama didn't actually practice Islam. He does. This guy does practice Islam, but of course, it's not like what they're saying. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it's blatant racism. Absolutely.
And it's all about Israel.
Right.
I mean, it's not even like cloaked anymore. It's all about Israel, because he said he wouldn't go to Israel. He's running for mayor of New York City, not president. And even if he was president, why would the first place you go to Israel? There's 180 UN recognized countries.
Malay went to the Wailing Wall. You know what I mean? The president of Argentina.
Oh,
so
let's not bring up that clown.
Israel loving Argentina too. But yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, it's insane. But anyways, I hope that whatever happens, I mean, that would be such a triumph against not just, corporatism as a political ideology, but a statement against how just fed up people are with the gaslighting by AIPAC.
Oh, yeah.
You need to keep movement building, not just electoralism. But thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
thank you so much, Rebekah Jones, for coming back on the show. And to everybody out there, have a really good night. And we're out.
Blank period, yeah. On my black, brown, and indigenous. Gotta holler if you really feeling this. Gotta holler if you really real enough. Other rappers is delirious. Yeah, it's really that serious. Better holler if you really feeling me. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah. We gonna live in abundance. I gotta keep it 100, ayy. If you don't like it, then fuck it, ayy. We gonna win in the end, yeah. We gonna. I gotta keep it 100. We gotta stop all the stunting. You know we coming from nothing. Yo, you talking about money, you bluffing. We gotta do something different. We gotta change how we live in. We gotta do better for women. We gotta do better for children. We gotta listen to victims, whether Jewish or Muslim or Christian. It doesn't matter your religion. You gotta stand against the system, or else you just another villain. How you just sitting there chilling?